You know, here we are, 6 years, Rant in the making. 6 years ago, we launched the Rant Network with a simple premise: call out the bullshit, ask the question nobody wants to ask, and refuse to let comfortable lies replace uncomfortable truths. 6 years of ranting about corporate malfeasance, sports corruption, political theater, and thousands of small hypocrisies make up modern life. And we're here 6 years later, and I'm going to talk to you about something that happened at an NBA All-Star game. Something small, some might say, something that most people will forget by today. But something that crystallizes a problem that's so deep, so ancient, and so persistently ignored that makes everything else we've covered look simple in comparison. Benny Avdija. Israeli.
Avdija.
A-V-D-I-J-A.
Avdija. Benny Avdija. Thank you.
We gotta enunciate the name. Israeli basketball player. He's 23 years old. Talented kid. Like all athletes, he worked his entire life to have this moment, to take the court as an NBA All-Star player. And there was courtside, one of the most expensive seats in American sports, the jerk-off who cries every single day, Mr. Spike Lee. Legendary director, Knicks superfan, cultural icon. And he holds his purse, satchel, if we're being fancy, that has a Palestinian flag on the strap, prominently displayed. Now, before anyone starts screaming about, it's not clear about what I'm not saying, I'm saying Spike Lee can't support Palestinian rights. I'm saying Palestinian flag is a hate symbol. I'm not saying criticism of Israel's government or policy of anti-Semitism. Spike Lee saying I'm pro October 7th massacre, the raping of women and murdering of children. Spike Lee is a perfect black hypocrite who wants to forget that the slave traders were black, that black slavery is because of black, and that Jews were walking hand in toe with Martin Luther King. Yep, Spike, get real. What I'm saying is, when a young Jewish athlete takes a court and you make a point of waving a Palestinian flag at him, you're doing something very specific. You're making a statement. You're sending a message. And that message is, you, Israeli Jew, are responsible for my problems. And I see you and I reject you. Now, Spike Lee, clearly not an accomplished sports person. He has to pay to play. But it brings me to another question that nobody wants to honestly answer. Why, after everything, after a Holocaust, after the programs, after the expulsions, after the Inquisition, after 2,000 years, undereducated people like Spike Lee still have so much hate words towards Jews? It's an uncomfortable conversation. And Spike Lee, you need to be canceled in Hollywood, because the Jews didn't kill Jesus Christ. People like you, Spike Lee, killed Jesus Christ. Yep. People just like you. You're the reason why there is so much hate towards blacks in America. You're the reason why there's anti-Semitism in the street. You're the reason why your children will be called all kinds of names. You're the sole reason why. Someone who has risen above all of his black friends And instead of taking the torch and leading the world with light, you choose to lead with darkness. David?
Well, Stuart, I leave you alone for a couple of days, and holy moly. So let's just put a few things into place, folks. I'm going to little spin back here. You know, Deni Avdija is one of the few Israeli basketball players to ever make the National Basketball Association. Drafted 9th by the Washington Wizards back a number of years ago, and had a mediocre start. And when he went to Portland, discovered his game, and this year's been an all-star. And we talked about mixing sports and politics. And what's interesting is that whenever Deni Avdija comes to town, there's always one asshole, or just about every time, who has to ask about the politics behind an Israeli basketball player. Now, it's interesting because Russians go out and play tennis and go out and play hockey in pro sports. You know, you've got great players from all over the world. And, you know, those Russian players, you know, at the beginning of the war were asked about Putin, and they gave their statements and this, that, and next thing. And it's been years, and since then it's been quiet, nothing. But not for a Jew, not for an Israeli. And Deni Avdija brings both to the basketball game. Now, he doesn't stand there and wave an Israeli flag at every game. It's not about politics. It's about playing basketball. He's paid by the Portland Trail Blazers to play basketball. And he became one of the best players in the league this year, recognized by his peers in the game, including one LeBron James, whom I don't have a hell of a lot of respect off the court, except this time I do. Because LeBron James in the press conference was asked, you know, hey, like, what do you think? And his answer was, he's an all-star. The quote is, I believe he's an all-star, and he is an all-star. He's playing exceptional basketball, so that's that. Then he goes on to say, if I have fans over there, meaning Israel, then I hope you've been following my career. I hope I inspire people over there to not only want to be great at sports, but to be better in general in life. So hopefully someday I can make it over there. Like I said, I've never been over there, but I've heard great things. I appreciate the question. Now, this is a nice way of dodging this whole political BS, because this is what it is, political BS. And what does a Mehdi Hassan do? What does a Mehdi Hassan do? Basically, he says, what a disgrace LeBron is. So, you know, it's amazing because there's no room here. There's no room here. There's no room. Your Spike Lees, your Mehdi Hassans have no interest in humanity. They have no interest in really living as Americans. They're caring about isolating one group of people wherever they are. Universities, corporate life, politics, entertainment, and obviously the basketball court. They gave so much attention to this one basketball player. All the while, these bastards who sit here and say they're there for humanity don't give a shit about the thousands of Iranians being slaughtered. They're quiet about it. Because if it ain't a Jew, there ain't going to be anything there. No Jews, no news. Now, this is not new because they're taking a page very much out of other people's playbook, including the United Nations' Francesca Albanese. Francesca Albanese is a card-carrying anti-Semite. She'll tell you she's not. And the United Nations keeps hiring her, saying, no. Except this time, Stuart, even the UN, with that hateful, and Gutierrez, who's the Secretary General of the United Nations, even he had to distance himself. Because if you think Spike Lee went too far and Mehdi Hassan went too far, Francesca Albanese said, quote, this is unbelievable. She suggested, listen to this, instead of stopping Israel, most of the world has given Israel political excuses, political sheltering, economic and financial support. We do not control large amounts of financial capital, algorithms, and weapons. We now see that we as a humanity have a common enemy. Not the Iranians who just got elected to a special position in the United Nations, not Saudi Arabia, not Nigeria that's slaughtering people, not just go on on the list. The incredible thing is that there's just no end to this game. There's no end hate fest. And that's exactly what this is. It's a hate fest by folks on the left who think they hold the moral high ground over you and me. That they say that there should be no racism, but on the other side, Jews are not. Jews in Israel, that's okay. Those are proper targets. The United Nations has condemned Israel more than almost every other nation combined in 2026, and we're only February 16th.
Yep.
It doesn't make a difference to Spike Lee, who has Jews being in entertainment, Jews he's paid for to make money off of for his own benefit. It's all about hate. You started with Spike Lee, and I'm going to tell you about a guy named Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is tired of this. He said it time and time again. We blame everybody for our problems. And that's exactly what Spike Lee's doing right now. He's blaming his community's problems on you and me. Whites, Jews, doesn't matter. While he sits on the fucking sideline of a court with his money and he sits there and he goes, my life is miserable. My community's life is miserable. No, Spike, your community life is not miserable because of Jews. But why don't you take a page out of it? Stop being jealous about what's going on. Now, Stuart, I know you don't watch football, but at the Super Bowl, Robert Kraft paid a lot, about, $8 million to run an ad about anti-Semitism. It's not the first year he's run an ad. And Jews were saying, you know what? The ad didn't go far enough. The ad didn't go far enough to tell people that Jews are not just a bunch of wimps, but there's a value in what we do to community, to society. We're a +1 wherever we go. But the people like Spike Lee and Mehdi Hassan hate us because of that. We are not wimpy. We're not willing to just lay down like lambs. And that's what you get here right now. And Stuart, I'll wrap it up with this. I wish that more Americans and Westerners had the intestinal fortitude to stand up to Spike Lee and said, you know what? We're not watching your movies anymore. We're not going to watch you anymore. We're not going to pay for your thing anymore. Because if you are going to be a hateful son of a bitch, we're done. We're out of here.
Well, David, let me jump in. I'm not a cancel culture kind of guy. I'm really not.
I didn't say cancel. I didn't say cancel.
Hang on. Don't go use your wallet. Let me finish. I think it's just more of telling people like Spike Lee, you're a beautiful artist. You put on wonderful cinematography stuff that people pay and see, but I really give a shit what your political bias is because you're just a moron. All right. So here we are 6 years into the Rant Network, and I'm talking about the same hatred, David, like you are. And this has been talked about for 2,000 years. So why do we still have so much hate towards Jews? The honest answer is because it's useful, because it's easy, because the conspiracy theories run. It's simpler than the complex reality, because blaming 2% or 0.02% historically vulnerable minority, it's always easier than addressing the systematic problem. Because in every society, they need a scapegoat. And the Jews have been playing this role for millennia. But here's what gives me some hope, David. And I'm not usually the hope guy in our duo. The fact is, we're having this conversation at all. The fact that incidents like Spike Lee's purse makes news. The fact that some people are waking up to doubt the double standards, or question the double standards, or think about that there is a double standards. The hypocrisy is a thin veneer covering Spike Lee's teeth. And let me tell you, because of this thing, you can support the Palestinian rights without being anti-Semite, right? You can criticize Israel's policies without holding every Jew responsible. You can advocate for a two-state solution without denying Jewish history or Jewish rights. You can believe that Palestinians' lives matter without believing that Israelis' lives don't. But you have to be willing to be honest. You have to be willing to ask yourself the hard questions when you hold up a flag like that, when you exclude that student, that basketball player, or vandalize that synagogue. What are you accomplishing? Who are you helping? How are you helping? Denny didn't choose to be born in Israel any more than you chose where you're born, Spike. He's not Netanyahu. He's not the IDF. He's a kid who wants to play basketball. And you're right. LeBron is someone we picked on this rant over the last 6 years, more than once. And when you make this kid a target or the core of your political protest, you're not fighting justice. You're just continuing an old systematic Western problem, making Jews convenient targets for your, unfortunately, mental instability and rage and your inadequacies. 6 years into the Rant Network, and some things just haven't changed. People still hate and lack accountability. Corporations value profit over principles. And the powerful still escape the consequences. And the vulnerable pay the price. And Jews, can still be the world's favorite scapegoat. And I don't think we're going to change that today. But just maybe we can just get enough people to ask these uncomfortable questions and call out people like Spike Lee in the public and question him in the public with his man bag. Maybe the next 6 years, David, that we continue to rant, there'll be a little less stop, a little less hating, and maybe a little less Spike Lee. I don't know, David.
What can we one can only hope. And Stuart, there are movements out there, and I was in Calgary a few weeks ago to experience it, that there are people who don't believe in any form of hate. Anti-Jew, anti-Chinese, anti-Italian, anti-whatever, it doesn't make a difference. If we are, in your case, all Americans, and if we here are all Canadians, then to use the crappy quote, it's supposed to be a big tent. So why are we excluding people from the big tent? If we're going to be one happy society, if we're going to be one productive society, then everybody has to be included. Jew, Muslim, Christian, doesn't make a difference where you're from. But if you want to start excluding people, just be aware of what that will lead to. Just be aware of what that will create for your country. Because we've been here before. We have been here before. Stuart, wrap it up, please.
See y'all later. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern. David and I rattle it down. Welcome back to the hot seat, David. See y'all on Wednesday.